Hello, everybody. This is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today, we're going to talk about Our Lady of Fatima and the 5 First Saturday devotion. Now, before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, secutor principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. So this episode isn't really going to be a fleshed out episode in Our Lady of Fatima because that would take a long time to do. Today we're just going to talk about the 5 First Saturday devotion of reparation to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And I think it's important to do. You know, we do a lot of apologetics episodes here, but the second longest playlist here is on Catholic living. We have episodes on just how to be a better Catholic, and a lot of Catholics do know about the 5 First Saturdays and some don't. So I thought it'd be good to do an episode on this. So what do we know? We know in 1917, Our Lady appeared to 3 children in Fatima, Portugal, which is not that far outside of Lisbon. I have been to Fatima back in 2003. I was there, and that was the last time that I had done my 5 First Saturdays. In full honesty, I haven't done it since then. But she appeared to children on the 13th of the month for, I think, from May to October, so that's what, 6 months. And the final visit, by that point, there was a lot of fame coming from, not fame, but a lot of publicity coming from. So there were tens of thousands of people who came to the last apparition, and only the children, of course, could see her or hear her. I think Francisco could not hear her, only see her. But she did do the miracle of the sun through the power of God, of course, because Mary's not a goddess and she has no inherent power. But the sun moved around in the sky, and it was raining that day, and the sun got really big and people were scared. And you can see video and photographic images of this. And a lot of the people that were there were Masons and atheists and Protestants who wanted to make fun of this. And it was the sun got really big, and then it dried up the ground, and it was a beautiful thing. So one of the things later, now 2 of the children, Jacinta and Francisco, died pretty young, but Sister Lucia eventually entered the convent, and she only died like 10 years ago. And look, we're not going to get into some of the theories about the switcheroo, Lucia, and all these things like this, and whether or not the consecration to Russia was done. I mean, that's a completely separate episode. But so in the 1920s, when she was in the convent, the Virgin Mary appeared with Jesus, a child Jesus, and kind of fleshed out the 5 First Saturdays. And so what are the 5 First Saturdays? And then I'll actually quote what Jesus and Mary said. The 5 First Saturdays are kind of like, if you do these 3 things on the 5 First Saturdays of a month, it can be any month, but it should be done consecutively. So if you want to do January, February, March, April, May, whatever it is, there would be certain graces that come from it. So the things that you need to do are go to confession. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be on the Saturday that you go to confession. It can be 8 days before or 8 days after, but you go to confession. Go to Mass and receive the Eucharist. That's number 2. That needs to be done on the Saturday. So the first Saturday of the month, you go to Mass, receive the Eucharist. You must be in a state of grace, of course. So preferably you've gone to confession that day or 3 days before, whatever, 8 days before, and you're still in a state of grace, you receive the Eucharist. Now, you can receive the Eucharist if you're in a state of grace, with the intention of going to confession after, within that 8-day period after, because that's part of it. You must go to confession during this time. So if you can't go to confession up to 8 days before the first Saturday, you can go to confession 8 days after the first Saturday. Then you're going to do a rosary and meditate on the 5 decades of the rosary. And then you're going to do at least 15 minutes of just meditating on the mysteries. So we have an episode here about repetitious prayer and why Catholics do the rosary. But a really good rosary is you are meditating on those mysteries, whether they be the joyful, luminous, sorrowful, that you are meditating on, like, you pretend like you were there, like what it was like when Jesus was scourged, or what it was like when he ascended into heaven, or whatever it is. So these are the 4 things that you must do every first Saturday: is meditate on his life, do a rosary, go to Mass, receive the Eucharist, and go to confession. 5 First Saturdays consecutively. So what are the promises attached to doing these 4 things? Well, I'll quote from the Virgin Mary here. There's a couple of promises that come from you doing these things. Number 1 is salvation of her own soul. This is the quote the Virgin. To all those who on the first Saturday of 5 consecutive months fulfill all the conditions requested, I promise to assist them at the hour of their death with all the graces necessary for the salvation of their soul. Number 2 is salvation of sinners in general. Now, of course, sinners, this could be Protestants, atheists, Catholics who are not in the state of grace, certainly. So numerous are the souls which the justice of God condemns for sins committed against me that I come to ask for reparation. Sacrifice yourself for this intention and pray. This is what she told Sister Lucia in 1929. And number 3 is peace in the world. Whether the world has war or peace depends on the practice of this devotion along with the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This is why I desire its propagation so ardently, especially because this is also the will of our dear Mother in heaven. This is what Sister Lucia said in 1939. So these are some of the promises. So it's good for you. You're also helping others, which is a work of mercy. And of course, we want peace. Now, let's go back. So why the whole idea of the first Saturdays? Okay, so I'm going to read a quote off this because it's just much easier. The promise made by Our Lady to Lucia on July 13th, 1917, that there would be a future manifestation concerning the practice of the 5 first Saturdays was fulfilled in 1925. Lucia, again, was in the convent. Mary appeared with the child Jesus. The child Jesus spoke first. Have compassion on the heart of your most holy mother, covered with thorns, which ungrateful men place therein at every moment, while there is no one who does an act of reparation to withdraw them from her. That's what child Jesus says. And then Our Lady says, quote, behold, my daughter, my heart encircled with thorns, with which ungrateful men pierce it at every moment by their blasphemies and ingratitude. Give me consolation, you at least, and make known on my behalf that I promise to assist at the hour of death with the graces necessary for salvation all who on the first Saturday of 5 consecutive months confess their sins, receive Holy Communion, recite 5 decades of the Rosary, and keep my company for 15 minutes meditating on the mysteries of the Rosary for the purpose of making reparations to my Immaculate Heart. Now, why the 5 first Saturdays? Now, this is mentioned in Lucia. There are 5 kinds of offenses and blasphemies against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Namely, blasphemies against her Immaculate Conception. Now, when I say these things, these are going to be, informal or material heretics, Catholics, and of course Protestants, because there are going to be certainly Protestants who don't believe these things, the Marian dogma, but also there's Catholics who either willfully, who are formal heretics, or material heretics. We have an episode on that, who don't know the church teaching. But either way, blasphemies are against her Immaculate Conception. So those who do not believe she was immaculately conceived by the power of God. Okay, that's number 1. Blasphemies against her perpetual virginity. I mean, this is one of the big ones. I mean, the Protestants who believe that Joseph and Mary had relations is just. And again, if you need more flesh out of this, I have the 2-part episode on the 4 Marian dogma. And I also have an episode on why Protestants misunderstand Marian devotion. Number 3 is against the divine and spiritual maternity of Mary. Mary being our mother, mother of all mothers. You see this played out in Revelation 12 if you need the scriptural stuff. But again, it's interesting because there's been more councils throughout church history that are fleshing out the issue of the divinity of Christ, let's say, for example, than on Marian stuff. There's always, throughout church history, really never been a debate on most of the Marian dogmas. It's just always been accepted, even though you look at the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption were not formally announced, I should say, until the 19th and 20th century. It was always believed, and you can read church fathers on this. Number 4 is blasphemies involving the rejection and dishonoring of her images. So these are people who defame images of the Virgin. Again, we have an episode here on how we don't worship images. Go read the catechism on that. And number 5 is the neglect of implanting into the hearts of children a knowledge and love of the Immaculate Mother. So those are the 5 blasphemies. So when you are doing your rosary or you're meditating for 15 minutes, whatever, try to remember those 5 blasphemies. And of course, You can look these up. Lastly, what I want to tell you is, I think most of you Catholics know this, but if there's any Protestants that are watching this, the Marian apparitions are private revelation. They're not public revelation, meaning that you don't necessarily need to believe them. They're private revelation, so you can choose to do the 5 first Saturdays, for example. And you can choose to visit some of the Marian sites where Mary appeared. You don't have to believe them. And the church does its due diligence to make sure that these Marian apparitions are legitimate. They do long investigations. And some of the most famous ones, like Our Lady of Medjugorje, which has been going on for 40 years now, 30 years, has never been approved. So it's not like every time somebody says they're visited by the Virgin Mary that the church is like, yes. No. In fact, most of Marian apparitions are never approved by the church. But Our Lady of Fatima, of course, is one of the most famous ones. So just understand that typically with Marian apparitions, the message from our mother is going to be very consistent and never contradictory of the deposit of faith. I mean, if it ever was contradictory, then that's one of the reasons it's not accepted, like at Our Lady of Medjugorje, for example, or Gadar Bandala, or these other places. So understand that it's the church in its wisdom, because it's founded on Christ, right? Whatever you bind is bound, says in its due wisdom that it's okay to have these devotions to these various Marian apparitions, and it's okay, if you like, to do these things. And so you have the choice to do it. You don't have to do it as a Catholic, but you have the choice to follow these things should you choose to do them. And something like the Rosary. The Rosary is not mandatory for all Catholics to do. It's just a form of prayer that you can do, but you certainly don't have to do it. So guys, consider doing the 5 first Saturdays. As I mentioned, I've done it once and I haven't done it since then, but maybe I'll do it again. And just go out of your way. I mean, it really isn't that hard. You just got to go to Mass and go to confession within 8 days of going to Mass and doing a rosary. Some of you do daily rosaries, so it's not really that hard. But do it, because you see the blessings that you do for yourself, but also for others and for peace in this world. And certainly, especially with the issue with the Ukraine and Russia right now, and other places like Yemen and war-torn sub-Saharan Africa that we never hear about. This is really important stuff, so consider doing it. Please post in the comments. Let me know if you've ever done this or you'd like to do this. Please hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Share with like-minded people. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.